Welcome to Sober Talk. I'm Dennis and I have lived experience of alcohol. If you or anyone you know is struggling with alcohol, please call Alcoholics Anonymous on 1300 222222 or check out their website on aa.org.au. I'll just run through the preamble of Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other. They must solve their common problems and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses or opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety.
Hi, I'm an alcoholic. My name is Dot, and I'm sober today, and that's thanks to the power of God and the fellowship of AA. I always like to acknowledge that because I know that I would not have got sober by myself. I needed the help of both my higher power and the fellowship. I was born in 1941. That makes me a war baby. So I was brought up by my father, who was in the army, and my mother, who was a very sick lady. She had TB and died when I was 7. My father remarried very quickly because he couldn't raise 4 kids by himself. And that's where I believe that my life has been a series of crossroads. We get to a fork in the road and we decide whether we're going to go left or right. And I know that many times in my life I've been to crossroads and made the wrong decisions. The first decision I think I made was when I married the first man that came along, because I was not happy at home. I was just felt unloved and unwanted. My father was very strict, and of course he's cut off human contact with me when my mother died, and I found out later that it was probably because he saw too much of me in my mother. So I actually applied to join the Navy when I was 19, and I was going to, I was accepted and ready for a call up, and I met this man, and he cried and told me he didn't want me to go away. He wanted to marry me, and of course I made the decision to stay, even though I knew he was an alcoholic. Well, I didn't really know he was an alcoholic. I knew he drank too much. But I thought, I was very young, innocent, naive. I thought, well, things will change when we get married and when we have kids. And, he won't drink as much. But of course, he didn't. But I did. And I took my first drink. When I took my first drink, not long after I was married, I drank alcoholically. Straight from that first drink, I drank a whole bottle of Tia Maria, and I hated the stuff. And I hated the taste and the smell of alcohol all my life. Every day I drank, I would have to hold my nose to put that first drink down my neck, and I could not understand why I drank when I didn't even like the stuff. I didn't know about the obsession. It's a physical compulsion and a mental obsession, I've been told in AA. And that was me. I got obsessed with this drink. And then there was another crossroad when my firstborn child I had 4 kids, all of them in 5 years. The firstborn was killed, and I didn't know how to handle grief. I couldn't handle my grief. I ran away from grief, and the way I ran away was to take myself and my family up north to a salt mine. We lived in a caravan on this salt mine, and it was very hard, difficult, with 3 little ones. So that was a good excuse for me to drink. I chose to go there because it was an alcoholic's paradise. I couldn't drink in front of my family. I was ashamed to see I always tried not to let my father see me drink. So I chose to go up there. And I drank with the men because the men drank faster than me, or so I suppose. I was able to point the finger at them and say, they're the alcoholic, not me. But I eventually got to the stage where I was drinking more than them. I was worse than them. They would not turn up to work the next day, and I did. But I was very, very sick. My cure for hangovers was have another drink. And so I eventually got to the stage where I was drinking 24 hours a day. I don't mean I was drinking every minute of that day, but I was always drinking all through the day. And I never went to sleep. I just passed out. I had bruises all over my arms from bouncing off the passage wall. And then people had asked me, why you been bruised? Had your husband been beating you up? I said, oh, no, I'm fine. But I wasn't fine. And I knew it. I knew after 20-odd years of drinking that I wasn't fine. And I went to my doctor one day, and I was looking for answers. I had a lot of physical problems, and this day he turned his back on me and washed his hands, and I took that literally. I thought, he's washing his hands of me. He's had enough of me, because he said he couldn't help me anymore. And I went home that day, and I made a decision, a new crossroad. I decided that I would stop drinking low enough to get well physically. I wasn't going to give up drinking. That didn't enter my head. All I wanted to do is get well enough to be able to drink again. But then there was a miracle happened. The miracle happened when, after about 6 weeks of not drinking, my head started to clear, and I liked what was happening to me, and I wanted more. And what I decided was, I need help to do this. I can't do this by myself. I've done it for 6 weeks, but I know that I'm going to give in and pick up another drink. And the next thing that came into my head was, I've got to find this thing called AA. And I'd not heard about it, but I've read and seen it, mentions of AA in TV shows and movies. I was working as a projectionist, so I showed a lot of movies and saw a lot of drinking stories. And I thought, I've got to find this thing called AA. I didn't even know it meant Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know how to look it up in the phone book. My head was that addled. I couldn't figure out how to contact AA. But the next miracle happened again. I believe that my recovery was a course of little miracles. I didn't recognize these miracles at the time. I didn't register these miracles until years later when I went through my story. But what happened was I thought, well, I've got to find AA, but I don't know how. And while I was still pondering on this, I got a visit from my local pastor. And my local pastor used to come and visit me regularly, even though I didn't go to church that often. When I went to church, I'd sneak in when there was nobody there, because in this town that we finished up in another mining town. This one was an iron ore mining town, and we got a house to go with it, which was a great relief for us. And I'd sit at the back of the church and try and find this power, my God, that I couldn't understand, and I couldn't put my faith in it. I believed there was something there, but I couldn't put faith in it. And I'd sit there, and maybe the priest found out that I was doing this, but he used to come and visit me on a regular basis. And I told him about my alcoholic husband, and told him what how he neglected me. He was spending all his time in the pub and not with me. And, I blamed him and my boss and everybody else for my drinking. Wouldn't take responsibility for myself. And he came rushing in the door this day and said, not AA, Al-Anon is coming to town tonight. They're having a meeting. Would you like to go? And I told him, I said, well, I can't go because I'm working tonight, but I need AA. So he was the first person that I admitted that I was an alcoholic to. And he offered to bring the lady and the man that was from AA to my house and tell me about AA and Al-Anon. And they told me I needed both. And I thought, well, no harm done. And they came around to my house and they told me I needed both fellowships. But if I needed that, or if I wanted AA, I'd have to travel across to their town, which was 300 kilometres away. It took me a week to get up the courage to go. But I'm glad I got there, because when I walked into that first meeting, I felt at home. I recognised that these people, I understood them. Even though they talked a strange language, or it seemed strange to me, I understood. And they told me that I wasn't alone, and they knew and they understood and cared. And I was given help. And that help was the best thing that I accepted. And the other thing they told me was I had a disease called alcoholism. And I thought, thank God, I thought I was insane. My excuse for drinking was I was insane, and I was frightened of being locked up because of this insanity. So I thought, I'll take the alcoholism. That's a safer disease than insanity, because I won't get locked up with the alcoholism, but I would have been locked up with insanity. So I grabbed this program with both hands, and I told myself that I have to get sober no matter what lengths I go to get it. I accepted wholeheartedly that I was addicted to alcohol and my life was unmanageable, and I had to find a higher power. Finding a higher power was not so simple. I was taught to say please in the morning and thank you at night, and I get it back to front and say thank you in the morning and please at night. But my God understood my language. And I just accepted that I had to do what they told me to do. They told me to turn my will of my life over to a higher power, whether I understood it or not. And I kept doing that every morning before I got out of bed. I found out the hard way that if I jumped out of bed before I did that, I would finish up forgetting to talk to my higher power. So I taught myself to talk to my higher power before I got out of bed. But it took me 3 years to really put my faith in a higher power because I was impatient. I talked to my higher power and tell him what I needed, and I didn't get any answers, and I get impatient and say, "Oh God, you're too slow. I'm taking over." And I did that for 3 years. I just played a seesaw game with my higher power. I'd hand over and take back, hand over, take back, hand over, take back, over and over again every day, until I finally got to the stage. In 3 years, it took me 3 years to do my 4th step. A lot of things happened in my 3 years. I separated from my husband, even though he went to rehab, and I resented the fact that he went to rehab and I didn't. I got sober at home, but he never accepted AA. So he didn't change, but I was slowly changing. And after 3 years, I decided that I had to separate. And I didn't do it the easy way. I travelled all the way to Cairns, where I knew nobody. And that's when I was in a lot of physical and mental pain because I couldn't get a job. The people in the fellowship thought I was crazy, and I really was crazy. And I was in so much pain. One day I just fell on the beach and said, "I give up, I surrender, I give in." And that's when things started to change for me. That's when I finally put my faith completely in my life, in the hands of my higher power. This program is the best program that's ever been invented. It's a good fellowship because it's got all the answers, But I found out the hard way that if I want what the older sober members have, I had to do the work, do what they did. So I found out that I had to put my work into the program, put my work into the steps. And in that way, I say, when I prayed for help, God gave me a shovel. He didn't hand it to me wholeheartedly. I had to do the work. I had to do the steps. I had to do them thoroughly because I didn't want half measures. It says in the big book, half measures avail us nothing. So I decided I was going to do the program wholeheartedly, and I still do that today. I'd still say my prayers every morning. I still read my inspirations. I still pick up the phone and talk to another member, and I still go to meetings when I can. This program is just, I look at my sobriety as a gift from my God. And what do you do with a gift? You take care of it, you look after it, and you hold it close. And that keeps me sober. I have a fear of picking up a drink. It's a healthy fear. And that keeps me sober. I respect the fact that I do have a disease and I have to treat it every day, every single day, because it's still there. I call it the monkey on my shoulder. It's still laying asleep on my shoulder. I like the interpretation that I have a thick brain. It's a chemical that alcoholics have that other people don't have. And that chemical is called THIQ. It's a long name, but it starts with THIQ. And I call him the monkey on my shoulder. And that monkey is asleep today because I haven't had a drink. But if I take one drink, it wakes that monkey up, and that monkey will slip up into my ear and say, "See, you're okay. You can have one drink. One drink's not going to hurt. But one drink, I've never had one drink. But when I have one drink, it starts off that compulsion that doesn't stop. It's a voice in my ear that says, gimme, 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 gimme more. And I can't stop it. So, means that I cannot pick up one drink one day at a time. And anybody can stop drinking just for one day. All we do is just don't pick up a drink one day at a time. And over time, those one days string together weeks, months, years. And, it's just such a good gift that I have to keep this gift. I have to give it away. And the way I give it away is to go to meetings. I can't give it away if I sit home by myself and think, oh, I'm okay. But in the rest of the world, my obligation is to pass this on and give it to others, because there's so many people around that just don't get it. And that's another reason why I look after my sobriety, because if I throw this away, this precious gift that I was given, God may not decide to give it back to me. He'll say, oh, you had your chance, you did okay, you had your chance, you did well, but you threw it away. There's got to be somebody out there that needs it more than you do. And that's why I don't pick up that drink, because I know that it's important for me to stay sober, because I've got family about me, and I have friends. I have two families. I've got my physical family, my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. They're all precious to me, but my second family is just as precious. They are the members of AA. And we are a family. We are a group who support each other and look after each other and take care of each other. And that's what the fellowship is about. You can't find another fellowship like this. It's just a beautiful fellowship, and it's just so simple. If I had any other disease like cancer or something, I'd have to take nasty medicines and all that kind of stuff. But all I have to do is just don't pick up a drink of alcohol. I can drink anything else. I can drink a lolly water. I can drink water, everything else, as long as it doesn't have alcohol in it. It's simple. It's a simple program designed for complicated people. And I complicated this program right from the start. I turned it inside out, upside down, to prove that it wouldn't work for me. I couldn't see that something so simple would work. So I had to learn not to be so intelligent. They say that you can be too smart to get this program, but you can't be too dumb. So I had to be dumb and just accept. Accept is the key. Acceptance is the key to this program. Just take it as it is and just keep going and keep coming back. Thank you.
We have local meetings for the full week in the local area. Monday is Gala meeting at 8 o'clock. Tuesday is Elizabeth East at 8 o'clock. Wednesday is Elizabeth East at 8 o'clock. Thursday is Two Wells at 8 o'clock. And Friday is Salisbury at 8 o'clock. There's a meeting at Davron Park at 12 o'clock. And on Sunday there's a meeting in Salisbury at 7 o'clock. And many other meetings in the area. For details of your local meetings, please phone 1300 22 2222. And once again, if anyone you know is struggling with alcohol issues, please call Alcoholics Anonymous on 1300 22 2222. The website is aaSouthAustralia.org.au.